All right. The Miami Dolphins have already made a lot of key moves so far this offseason, but how will that affect their 3-round mock or well, their 2025 mock draft? My name's Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and we have a 3-round mock draft for you here coming up for the Dolphins. But before we do that, hit that subscribe button, tackle that bell, and leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Dolphins do come April. And Ryan, let's pull up our draft here. So we did a full 3-round mock draft, all 102 picks, and with Miami, there's so many different routes that we can end up that we can see them end up going here. They have signed Fido Melifanu from Detroit, and also Ashton Davis as well from the Jets. And so they will. Does seem like they're losing Javon Holland in free agency if he hasn't actually already signed somewhere. I need to
No, he signed with the Giants.
That's what it is. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so they have already lost him, and so maybe they go with Malaki Starks, and he could be a guy that I could just see just similar. We've seen several teams have guys like this where they just get a very versatile safety that you can just move around all throughout the entire secondary, like do nickel, strong safety, free safety. He might slide in a little bit more as like a free safety overall, but I think he's just a really good football player, and so I think that could be a route that they could go, and that's what we ended up doing here. But I can also see them going a lot of different routes as well if they want to go offensive line, go on the interior. They have signed James Daniels already, but he's coming off an injury from last year. And so, how is that going to affect his overall 2025 season? And there's even other secondary players that they could end up getting. But Ryan, I want to throw it over to you. What do you think Starks brings to this Miami defense? And at the same time, what are some other routes that they could end up going here with the 13th overall pick?
Yeah, so he brings consistency and just good football play to the back end of this defense. I think similar. I know the Falcons had AJ Terrell, but then they went out and got Jesse Bates to go on the back end of that defense just to make a really solid tandem there. And that to me, I think is what this pick is. I think Effectu Melifonwu or Ashton Davis, those are like depth signings. I still feel like they need something at the top of the roster at the safety position, and so going and getting Malaki Starks, he was the leader of that Georgia defense this past year. He was the I think in my scouting like synopsis, I put Malachi Starks is the next great Georgia defender in the NFL, just because he's always around the football. He's always in the right position. Yeah, he didn't run the best at the combine. He didn't necessarily test athletically how everybody wanted, but historically at the safety position, that's not always the best predictor. And I feel like you go and look at what he did at Georgia. He's just so efficient in his movements. He's so good at just staying in man coverage, whether he's on a tight end or a slot receiver. He's a really good football player, and he has a really high floor in the NFL, and he also has a high ceiling. And so I feel like that's just a risk worth taking here at 13. So Will
Exactly.
Johnson is on the board if they want to go with like a true corner, but I do feel like Malachi Starks, especially after just losing Javon Holland while Jalen Ramsey's on the team, that they might wait at that position. Gray Zabel, I think, is a really solid interior offensive lineman that plays both center and guard at the Senior Bowl. And then Derek Harmon, if they want to get a Calais Campbell-esque replacement, he was one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in college football this
Yeah.
past year.
Well, and I think that's something too as well is they have a bunch of outside linebackers that are on
Yeah.
the team as right now. But if you look at their depth chart, they only have it's by how our lads
Oh my
puts it like
gosh.
one defensive end, one nose tackle, one defensive end so far on the roster. But they've got 9 outside linebackers. So and so that could be another route that they could end up going here. Defensive line is something that we address here later on. But one of the things we do end up addressing is going to be the interior of the offensive line, and we ended up getting Donovan Jackson. An offensive line is something that we felt was more important to address here in the second round, even though I know we talked a lot about the defensive line just a second ago and the lack of depth as of right now. But getting Donovan Jackson here in the second round for Miami would help out a lot. Donovan Jackson, traditionally a left guard from Ohio State, he ended up playing a lot at left tackle this past season because of the injury to Josh Simmons. And I think that's going to be one of the things you're going to see is like maybe PFF has him graded poorly overall just because of like of how he ranked but it's because he was playing at left tackle, not a true left guard. I feel like his ratings would be a lot higher, and we'd be talking about him as a potential first round pick. And I could see him maybe going first round if someone really likes him overall. But Donovan Jackson though brings a lot of versatility and a lot of athleticism, I think, to the interior of the offensive line for Miami here. And they have re-signed Liam Eichenberg. Yes, they did bring on James Daniels also, but I still think that they can easily improve on that. Maybe not James Daniels. We'll have to see how he does coming back from his injury. But Liam Eichenberg, I think Donovan Jackson can progress and have a but potentially take over that spot as well, or at minimum just be good backup overall his rookie year, and then see how things progress going into the 2026 season. But Ryan, what do you like about Donovan Jackson here, and what are some other potential slots that they could end up going with here if they don't want to go offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Jackson, his story and what he did this past season is just so impressive. I mean, it is not easy to kick out from guard to tackle. You hardly ever see that. A lot of guys go from tackles to guards because guards there's less physical requirements inside. So
Hmm.
for him just to be able to do that is impressive. But then at the end of the season, I mean, he was one of the best tackles in college football. Like it was kind of crazy to watch. And I don't know if he can do that at the NFL level. He's just a little bit heavier footed. But athletically, I mean, he has enough. He can move like well enough that there's a chance. And so with Teron Armstead retiring, I feel like that is going to be. He moved on from the. Did Teron Armstead retire?
No, he's still
I
on
th-
the roster as of right now. So according
okay.
to our list as of right now.
Okay. I thought I heard that he was contemplating retirement or might retire. So I do feel like if you get Donovan Jackson and you think he can play left tackle for you, that's fine. They also did draft Patrick Paul this past season.
Hmm.
So I do think maybe Donovan Jackson's best role will be at that left guard spot. And so I like this pick. You get a versatile offensive lineman that can come in and compete. And you know, I thought it was pretty selfless of him to be able to be willing to go out to tackle, because if he goes out to tackle and he has a really bad year, that could really tank his draft stock coming into the draft. And so just the fact that he was even willing to do that, I think speaks a lot about his character
Yeah.
and his want to win. So I like the pick. They could go with like another defensive lineman there with like a Shamar Turner or Omar Norman Lott if they want to potentially replace Calais Campbell again. I think Donovan Jackson is a really solid pick, and then Charles Grant is another riser on our boards as well. So moving on to their last pick here, pick 98. This is a compensatory pick, but Josh Farmer, the defensive tackle from I believe Florida State,
Florida
and
State, yeah.
he's just a bigger run stuffing defensive tackle. He can come in and really kind of plug some holes there in the middle and really allow these edge rushers to pin their ears back and go and collapse the pocket from the edges. So I like this pick. They need some help stopping the run, and I feel like Joshua Farmer can definitely do that.
Well, and especially too, this compensatory pick is from losing Christian Wilkins as
Yeah.
well, and so I think that this is going to be defensive line, as we've already addressed as well, like the lack of depth as of right now on the defensive line. And there's still guys that can absolutely go in and sign too, but I think you go get Josh Farmer in there. Obviously, it'd be great if he could turn into Christian Wilkins, but I think somebody that can come in and help contribute a lot of minutes. He was one of the few bright spots, I would say, from Florida State this past season. And
Yeah.
so getting him here at 98 is going to be good. But at the same time, there's a lot of guys that are still on the board. I could see them going like JJ Pegas, Jordan Phillips. I think Deion Walker was taken maybe a couple of picks before him, if I'm not mistaken there. And so Aeneas Peebles is taking pick right before. So there's a lot of defensive tackles that are going to fall in this range if they're wanting to go that route. So it's going to be interesting overall with Miami and kind of their approach to the 2025 NFL draft. They're one of the few teams too. I just look at the roster. It's like they have the star players, but I still just don't feel confident overall, just in kind of what they're doing. They were so weak on the offensive line, and I feel like that hinders their star players and their explosiveness overall. So it's like, how are they going to address that? They've started to address it a little bit with James Daniels. I think that this is going to be they can go get some good offensive linemen as a whole, but at the same time, though, too, also need to beef up that defensive line as well. So it's very interesting with Miami, and some of it's not their fault just because the AFC is just so loaded, and they just happen to be like a really fun team to watch, but they just don't have that it factor against
Yeah.
the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens, and now they have beaten some of those teams, yes, over the past couple of years. But when it counts, though, they seem to not be able to jump over that hurdle. So that's where it's just interesting looking at that roster, like what's going to happen over these next couple of years.
Yeah, and that's they do seem to have, like, the opposite problem. I feel like a lot of teams can build up the roster to get to 9 and 8, but they just don't necessarily have the star players to, like, put them over the hump, whereas I feel like the Dolphins have the star players to put them over the hump, but they just might not have the surrounding roster to really go and get that team to that consistent play level, so those star players and the impacts that they make can push them over the top. So,
Well,
uh
and that's goes back to my point. They can improve the offensive line a little bit because they now, especially after last year, after they got the running back, or not
Devon
last year,
Achane?
2 years ago, yeah, and then they have Jalen Wright also now too. But uh, now they have that really explosive running game where you can really spread these defensive out, and Tua, I think, with his limitations, I think fits really well into the system just with how great of a timing quarterback that he is. And so that's why he said if they can piece together like a better offensive line, get some better talent in there overall, raise the floor, so to say. I think I think that can help them get there because they can maybe be more balanced because it felt like for and maybe they still are like kind of that one trick kind of explosive pony,
It's just
But if you go look at the Bills, they can run the ball all over you. They can throw all over you because of Josh Allen. Same thing kind of too with Lamar Jackson. Now he's a little bit more of a running team as well. But uh, and I'm saying that specifically because they want to get to that elite level, especially two Bills being in their division. I It's good to see that they have those explosive running capabilities. But then this is going to be, I think, what they need to do to take that next step.
also too with the expectations of this team. I feel like comparing yourself to those teams and what they do, I feel like is going to be much more essential than
Yeah.
just like comparing yourselves to teams that are below them. And so yeah, I like what the Dolphins do. I do agree they are a little bit of a one trick pony in terms of like just speed and more speed. However,
hmm
it's a really good trick. Like it is a
Oh,
hard trick to stop.
no, no, and that's why, and that's what I'm saying. It's weird to just analyze the Dolphins because you're right. Like on any given Sunday, they can beat anybody.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, though, too, there's just that like if this one thing doesn't work, what's our next play?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know Dolphins fans like it's. I'm simplifying it completely, but I also think too, you as a Patriots fan though, being in the AFC East, I feel like you can kind of understand what I'm saying here, where it's like the the Dolphins can go out and they can go put up 40 points on you, but then if someone can shut down like this, like their main trick, like what their differentiator, like what is that next thing for them that they can do that they can go to in the playbook overall.
Yeah.
And so, but we'll have to see. It's a long way till the start of the season.
Yeah. So with all that said, let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this Dolphins 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.